Welcome to the Grande Bouffe.
The Big Feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. As always, we are here to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer each week. Hello, Mike.
What's going on, Cole?
How drunk are you, Mike?
I'm a little bit drunk. I'm like pretty drunk.
I met with a pal of mine last week, and he lives in New Mexico, and he's a little older than I am, and he listens to our podcasts religiously.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he thinks it's hilarious how much of a lightweight you are.
Well, tell him I am very light of weight, and it's not hard. Also, this guy, for the record, is like, I mean, like, these are high gravity beers for the most part. Like, they hit you.
I know, and that's why let's talk about this beer. So this for this film, La Cérémonie, a Claude Chabrol film.
I really hope we watch the right movie. I watched the right movie. I mean, it's in French, right?
Yes, and it stars Isabelle Huppert.
Yeah, and who else is in it?
Sandrine Bonnaire.
Yeah, I think we watched the right movie. Yeah. It's about a maid.
I don't know. Do any of these people look familiar to you?
Yeah. That's the one.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. I was a little worried. Claude Chabrol, famously referred to as the French Hitchcock, which means that I can never ever put that in any of my reviews, because that's the thing that every dumbass film critic feels the knee-jerk need. And I have to say, that's kind of demeaning to Claude Chabrol. I think Claude Chabrol is completely his own filmmaker. And,
I wouldn't say that from this movie. I would say he's has a relationship with him cinematically, but he's not parroting him in any way. This is a super fascinating film, which really takes its time getting to revealing why. So we watched this on Filmstruck.
Thanks for giving that great shout out to Filmstruck.
Getting that shout out. When you type in La Cérémonie, there's some interesting films that show up there, and so that's why I was like making sure we did watch the right one. And I'm glad I waited until we were literally recording to be like, I watched the right movie, right?
Yeah.
Michael.
So to go, I thought La Cérémonie. There should be a celebration with the ceremony, shouldn't there?
I like it.
And so the old standby. I kind of look forward to this time of year, because sometime in mid-November, I guess, or maybe early November, Sierra Nevada, the brewery that in a way started the whole. Well, I don't know if they started the whole thing, but they were one of the pioneers.
They were at the beginning
craft
of my
beer.
craft beer. The Sierra Nevada Pale Ale was one of the first,
and it stands up today. Give me if that one's on tap,
I'm going to a
want
party.
It. Yeah,
I need to buy a 6-pack.
Oh yeah,
I'm at a bodega. I go for the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Wise man you are. So here we are. It's the 2016 edition of the Celebration Fresh Hop IPA, and it's not so hardcore. It's 6.8, which is,
I mean,
estimable, but not.
I mean,
but not gonna kill you. You can drink 3 or 4 of these and only be a little. Well, you'll still be drunk.
Recording podcast back to back, I will be stumbling on the way back to the 4 train. But yeah, like it's not an insane amount of alcohol, but it's plenty.
And it's so delicious. This beer, let's drink a little bit of it. I have to say that I kind of froze the beer a little, so Mike and I had to stall a little bit while the beer heated up.
Yeah, luckily there's a very hot light on the table here, and I could just park my beer under it.
But it's just so rich. The body on this beer really is, it just swells up in your mouth and makes you want to eat a good old piece of filet mignon, or perhaps a nice piece of sea bass. I'm going to read from the bottle, as I am wont to do. We first brewed Celebration IPA in the winter of 1981, the year that I graduated from high school.
the year that was 9 before I was conceived.
81. That was a good year. I remember seeing Elvis Costello in Blacksburg, Virginia in February of 81 with Squeeze as the opening band, and that was a really amazing show. Anyway,
Yeah, I just remember Iggy and the Stooges
that's right. You tell
were
it.
playing the Coliseum Hall at the Winter Dome in El Paso
I think
de la Renta.
That's more like 1971.
Well, it was mostly nonsense, but
No, I like it. I like the De La Renta.
El Paso de la Renta.
That's nice. Yeah, I like it. So here we go. Each year, we use only the first fresh hops of the growing season to create this complex and robust ale. I hate that word robust, except I will say that in this context, it is absolutely apropos. Layered pine and citrus hop aroma balanced delicately against rich malt sweetness to shape this bold wintertime classic. This is the wintertime classic. So, I can't think of a better beer to go with this movie, or a better beer to be drinking in the month of December, of which this is the first day.
It is the first day. Yeah, no, this is it's somewhat connected to the one we drank last week, also known as an hour ago. But it's let me get a little more taste.
Taste it. Mike likes to give away our secrets.
I like to just explain why I'm so wasted at the beginning of a podcast.
I can see that. No, the fact of the matter is, I'm going away on vacation. Mike's going away on vacation, so we have to front load some episodes, and that means that we have to sit in our studio and drink a little bit for your pleasure and ours.
So la ceremony.
I'm so dying to hear what you think about this movie, but I have to say, Mike, you cannot say trigger, like none of this.
The
like
spoilers.
No, you can't say like, oh, this was a trigger for me.
This trigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, none of that. That's off the table.
That's a very loaded anti-millennial sentiment that you're starting off this podcast with.
And it very well may be.
Can I? So I think, and
What do people say? Like, that's a trigger point for me, or that's
not a trigger. No, I mean,
what do you say? I don't know what you say. What you millennials say?
I say it's triggering. Like, that's kind of triggering for me. I actually brought this up at work yesterday. Is someone was talking about? We're talking about how do you talk about the president-elect in just like in an office setting, like if it comes up. And I was like, honestly, I feel like it's triggering. Like, I feel like we can't kind of like talk. Like,
I want to say like feelings. Like, anytime people, like, if you get on the phone with like, any kind of, you have a dispute with whoever, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you feel that
like,
way.
Look, we don't know each other. So you can't talk about my feelings. This isn't a feeling. If I'm on the phone with Time Warner and I have a problem with my bill, don't try and paint me into a corner.
That bureaucratic talk about how, like, we're sorry that you feel that way, which is it's a legal non-acknowledgement of being responsible for this, but is trying to be empathic to you. Yeah, that's some bullshit.
AKA condescending bullshit. Patronizing, condescending bullshit.
Yeah, that's real gross. When lawyers and psychologists start writing things that people who make $8 an hour say, that's when you're in for some bullshit.
And it's a good point, because all of this kind of societal conflict is apropos to this film. This film is about class distinctions. It's about class warfare. It's about the mentality of different classes, and how upper classes are demeaning and humiliating. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, in the fan district. I practically grew up on the campus of VCU, which was great because I grew up with college students, and that really informed my reality. And also, I lived 2 blocks from an art house cinema, the Biograph. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to serve as counterpoint, but
Please.
At times, we had what you might call a maid.
You did.
Yeah, we lived in Mexico. We had
Mexico City.
Mexico City. We had a maid.
Yeah, but you
that-
were a baby.
I was a babe, but later in life too, my parents also lived there, and it's custom in a place like that you have someone who is either comes during the day or will like live with you. And I'm not trying to play this off as being normal. Like we were very we were doing all right, you know. But it is a very interesting relationship that develops when someone has to, on a daily basis, move your underwear or clean your the things that you would normally take care of. And that dynamic is one that is complicated, and if you look at it through a like a Marxist lens, say, or you look at it through the lens that even just that these are real people who maybe they're, you know, maybe they're not people that you want to trust with access to all of the
Well, you know,
guns in your first act, if you know what I'm saying.
Full disclosure, you know, we hire a cleaning lady. You know, we live in an apartment on the Upper East Side, and we hire a cleaning lady to go whenever to come and clean for 3 hours whenever we can afford it. And you know, we have you know this one girl that we always request because she's great. And so yeah, I mean it's a luxury for sure.
That's a luxury, and it's like, so what is this movie about? Let's get into it because
All right, well,
we're talking about Maids.
All right,
for,
yeah,
like,
sorry.
no reason.
Well, let's set it up a little bit. The film came out in 1995, which, for whatever confluence of reasons, was a terrific year for cinema. Unlike 2016, which, being a film critic of 20 years, I can tell you I do not remember a year as crappy as 2016.
Doug, Doctor Strange,
Oh shit!
Magical Beasts and Where to Find Them. That Tom Ford thing that just came
No.
out.
I'm interested in the Tom Ford thing. I think the Tom Ford thing may be
think that might be
terrific.
cool?
Yeah, I think that might be awesome.
I honestly don't know if I can name another movie that came out this year.
Well, Daniel Blake, which I don't guess you saw, or Elle,
didn't see
Paul
it.
Verhoeven's Elle
How's
is
the Elle?
amazing. Oh my
Elle's
god,
good.
it's amazing. And also, I am.
But what are even like the big movies that came out this year? I don't even know, man.
Wait, and
Well,
you-
I mean,
and-
Moonlight's
no.
a big deal. We covered it. We talked about it. We dismissed it. We said goodbye. We don't care.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this movie came out in the same year that Lars von Trier released Breaking the Waves. Which
Whoa.
have you seen Breaking the Waves, Mike?
No.
Well, if you
Should we? I had a podcast that I wanted to start with my friend called the Von Trier Trials, where we were going to ask every week, is Lars von Trier full of shit or not? And we were going to watch one of his movies every week.
You know,
and decide.
you know what we could do? We could pick a month and we could just have a Von, like we did Shocktober. We could have Von Triple, or I'm thinking of April, Von Traple.
Von Traple. Yeah, no, I'm down. I like it. That sounds good. Sorry, Eric, but get yourself a podcast kit,
yeah,
and
okay,
we could do it.
We'll get a podcast of your own.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love you, Eric. I didn't mean that.
Fuck you, Eric. I don't know you. And if your name was Jeff, I'd really hate you. Or Christian. What a horrible name. Give me a fucking break. Anyway, Breaking the Waves is 1995, same year that La Cérémonie came out, and I both of these films are really powerful movies, and this one stuck in my craw all these years, and I was very pleased to see that it was on Filmstruck. And so Claude Chabrol, if you don't know, master filmmaker who really, for my money, understood social satire to a much greater degree than Alfred Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock was more about suspense, master of suspense, no question. As far as social satire, he went there a little bit, and you can see it in moments like in Psycho when the cop pulls over the Janet Leigh, and he's got the shades on, the reflector shades, and he's just this image of authority and malevolence that you just shit your pants when that person
But he lets her go.
but because he's got a gun, and you feel that. And Hitchcock was really afraid of cops, as we all are and should be if you're not.
As Alfred Hitchcock should have been for being Well,
Yeah, anyway.
I don't know. The lady groper was really much of a crime back then, unfortunately. But
Yeah, the whole Tippi Hedren thing that's come out lately is disturbing. But I don't want to get into that. We're talking about La Cérémonie, which has one of the most amazing cast. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime cast. You know, we didn't talk about Jacqueline Bisset.
yeah, that was the name I was waiting for to confirm we saw the same movie. You didn't bring up Jacqueline Bisset, and I actually got nervous.
You know, so we've got Isabelle Hubert.
It's our second Jacqueline Bisset. Let's lay that out.
Really?
there.
What was the first one?
Day for Night?
Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's
one of
awesome.
our biggest hits of our
We have so
podcast
many
world.
touchstones that I want to return to. I love Jacqueline Bisset. Catherine and I went to see The Deep at the New Beverly Cinema a couple years ago, and man, she was so amazing. Anyway, and she's very amazing in this film. But in this movie, she's the lady of the house,
Yes.
and she runs an art gallery, and
Which we never see.
and she is the new wife of Jean-Pierre Cassel's character Georges, and
A very fancy factory owner.
and he has a couple of teenage children played by Virginie Ledoyen. And she's amazing. She's so beautiful.
What's she up to?
I want to know. Can we get her on the show?
Let's
Get her to come across the pond, if you will.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, she's beautiful. And then Valentine Merlet is Gilles. And if you had any question about where man buns came from, everyone's like, oh, man bun. Well, guess what? There was a
Came from 16-year-old French boys in the mid-90s.
That's right. There was such a thing as a boy bun. Long before there was a man bun, there was a boy bun. And I didn't even know that. I didn't catch the boy bun when I saw this film the first time around.
Yeah, this dude looks like he's serving you coffee off the Bedford stop real hard right here.
So it's a pretty formally composed film from a visual perspective and from a screenwriting perspective.
Well, what happens? It's it begins.
Well, let's start with that opening scene, the interview. The
job interview. Jacqueline Bisset is looking to hire a maid. She's talking to a candidate who is very stern, but seems very qualified for the position. And one thing that's I'm about to go into details. Anyway, she's hired, and trouble arises as she befriends the postal worker in town who has a troubled past, and then we learn a bit more about said maid.
So they're.
That's how you could do. That's a good summary, right? You kind of.
No, I like it. It's
heavy on the front end.
No, it's a good setup.
And then you lead into the end.
It's a good setup. You skipped
and then you kind of end with a question mark.
No, you skipped a very important part of it, which is a couple little things. This family needs a maid. We don't know how or the circumstances of the leaving of the previous maid, but we do know that they've been looking for a maid, and they're pretty much ready to hire whoever walks through the door.
I thought that this movie was going to be about a family that murders their maids systematically. I honestly...
I like that. I like that you thought that.
Right?
I like that.
And I think that's kind of the intent is there is this extra added edge to it that has an element of classism to it, and a sort of heightened genre thing where you're like, some fucked up shit's gonna happen.
Okay, so it's a tell that the resume is handwritten.
Right.
This is before the whatever in 1995 there were.
It happened.
Yeah, it could have been typewritten, but no, this is handwritten. But Jacqueline Bisset's character does not check the reference. And, anyone, FYI, if you're ever going to hire someone, check the reference. If there's a reference, just dial up the number and talk to whoever's on the other end of the line.
Just see if it's a Google Voice number, and then if it sounds like a 22-year-old is answering, pretending to be Frederick Richardson of the Millennial Corporation, I'm going to give you a hint. That's fake.
Right. So she does get hired, but there's some secrets that our Sophie is keeping from her employers. She gets set up in her nice little room. She has a television.
She has a television with buttons on it, and she pushes button after button.
All right, trying
to figure out which one turns the TV on.
But she has secrets. She has a few secrets. One of them being that she's illiterate.
Yeah, cat's out of the bag.
And we don't really know how it is or why it is that she's illiterate, that she hasn't, that
can
she
we,
didn't.
Can we dig into a second?
Yeah.
Yes, she like when it really like it becomes clear she's illiterate. She runs to her room and she has a book which has a lock on it, like a secret diary, which is
Yeah.
interesting, and it's has people doing hand signals, like a sign language,
Like sign
basically.
language,
So
yeah.
it seems like almost as if she was deaf at some point,
Could
and
be.
then
Could
became
be.
able to hear.
Could
Like
be.
it's
Could
they-
be, but Claude Chabrol does not. He does not.
doesn't
He does not
telegraph it
yeah,
at
no.
all.
Well, he does. He doesn't. He's not obligated to explain more. And I think that's one of the film's strengths is that it doesn't. It doesn't try and explain everything. It gives you the circumstance that you're in, and you, like the character, have to sink or swim along with the film.
This movie had a fascinating element to it, which it felt like it was based on a true story.
Well, it's based on a novel. I'm glad you brought that up.
Based on a novel.
Yeah, it's based on a novel by Ruth Rendell, and so Claude Chabrol and another screenwriter adapted it.
So when movies are either based on just a true story or based on a novel, they have like I feel like they have an interesting relationship to storytelling, which
much more complex than I feel like than most films that are just
absolutely
written cold.
Absolutely, it's this relationship to specificity, where like you see her. It's what's not being just simply stated is that she's illiterate. Like a screenwriter would just make that as simple as possible, that she's illiterate because no one taught her to read, because she was raised by weird drug addicts in a shitty part of Paris.
Well,
but a novel will go into deep things that she was deaf and she was not. And so it kind of like suspends your disbelief even more in a film like this.
And it makes it makes it much more immediate, because you understand that this character, things are a struggle. Everything is a struggle for her. She has to really work at getting through.
She's a very
life.
severe, intense person.
She is.
And they're very happy about her being a maid. So to begin with, they hire her and they're very pleased by her, and she's much better than this previous maid who we never see, who I'm assuming's corpse is going to arise at any point.
But then she makes friends with the postal clerk and Isabelle Huppert. If you guys haven't seen Verhoeven's Elle, get to see that film. It's on my. I think it's in my top 3 films of the year. And she's ageless. She's just phenomenal. She's great in this film. And she knows everything about this family because she's the postal clerk. And she has, according to Georges anyway, a history of opening their mail. And probably she has been opening their mail. She knows everything about his previous wife, his divorce, how much money he makes. She's on top of this family.
She also has a history of maybe...
perhaps
killing her own daughter,
her 4-year-old daughter, and that's something that comes about in the movie as a shared experience between these two characters, between the postal clerk and the maid, because the maid has her own history where she was accused of killing her handicapped father. However, both of these women, these would-be murderesses, were found innocent because
there wasn't
due to lack of proof.
Yeah, so I feel like this is where I think the movie like lies, Cole, is we are drawn into this being critical of Jacqueline Bisset and her sort of like very pretentious
her upper class status.
Her pretentious husband that's like super into opera, and his daughter that clearly has some sort of Electra complex, and it's just like, oh, we're just kind of like made nauseous by them.
Okay, now wait a minute. All right, let's talk about the Electra Complex. So, define your Electra Complex for our listeners.
Well, there's an Oedipal complex, and then flip them around, and it's Electra Complex. She's very close with her father, and they're literally very close, sitting on the couch together. It made me a bit uncomfortable. It was a little intense. To some degree, I'm like, well, they're French, so you never know. But I think there's definitely she's his daughter from another marriage, and there's a tension between her and Jacqueline Bisset, and it's almost competitive about the affections of this this guy who has this vibe like he's some like genius professor from l'académie, but he just runs a factory.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, there's this intense classist relationship, and you're drawn into really kind of want the best for this maid. And so she gets a friend, and when
Because she can't read the grocery list. She
she
gets the
can't read the grocery list.
she gets the grocery list from Jacqueline Bisset.
So your sympathy
And
is just,
she needs to call it in, and she can't do it. She
yeah.
physically cannot do it. So she goes to the only person that she knows in this little town that she in the northwest part of France, the coastal France, that she has arrived in, and she gets this woman's help, and there develops very quickly the subtext of a would-be lesbian relationship between these two.
I wonder if we were going to talk about that. There is a like erotic element to their relationship.
They're very physical with each other, and the way they become friends almost immediately. And you feel a little bit that,
but also like just like young girls.
You feel
It's just like young
well, you feel
girls are
a little
very-
bit that,
yeah.
that Isabelle Hubert has the upper hand. The postal
Yeah.
clerk she's a little more savvy, and she's kind of running the show.
She winds up very quickly visiting the family's house when the family is out, and is in the very sort of forcefully is like, "Let me see that room. Let me see that." And she's spying and she's looking at things, and our maid is not.
You feel that she's being taken advantage of a little bit.
Yeah, because you have this sensitivity for her, and you're kind of waiting for her to be like, "No, this is Madame's room," or like, "You can't look in here."
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly, she doesn't have that strong reaction. But what is nice is that she smiles and opens up in a way that's new for her. So as she's been introduced as the protagonist, and I think here is where the sort of play on the audience is very key, is that the dynamic that we're assuming and trying to guess what this movie is that our protagonist is the like working class person who's struggling with being illiterate, working for these uptight douchebags. She makes one friend, and she's like very happy by it, and you see that joy in her, and you're kind of excited for this friendship and her breaking free. And then one day, it's the daughter's birthday, and she actually asked for permission to take the day off, and she gets it. It's a Sunday, and she says, and Jacqueline Bisset is like, "Yeah, you can take the day off," but Jacqueline Bisset seems to forget. It's never really like kind of.
No, you Sandrine Bonner, the maid the maid takes off.
The maid takes off, and Jacqueline Bisset is like, "Where did she go?"
Yeah.
But she definitely like gave her the day off. She was like,
Right.
"Do what you can, but like you can leave."
Yeah, and then she's shocked and appalled that
she's like,
the maid took
where
off.
could the maid have gone? And you really kind of turn against Bisset and their douchey ways, and even the daughter is like, "Don't let him ride you too hard."
Well,
So you're totally on the maid's side.
But I have to say, I feel like Chabrol handles the characters in a very fair way, because when the daughter discovers that the maid is illiterate, she wants to help her, and she offers to help her, but because of this class conflict, and that's what I was talking earlier about, like growing up in Richmond, I was very class conscious because everybody was middle class, but I felt like my family wasn't quite middle class. And now, of course, everyone in America is automatically middle class. You can make $20,000 a year and you think you're middle class, which is, by the way, complete horseshit. If you make $100,000 a year, you're barely middle class.
Yeah.
And so the class conflict and the condescension between the classes, even though the daughter may be well-intentioned and would be able to help the maid just out of hand, she refuses it, and she's insulted by it.
I also think though that that's a misdirect, and that the class warfare, I don't even know if it's really there. I think.
It's there. There.
I think it's there for discussion, but this lady's she's a sociopath. She has an ego that has to, and she has a self-image, which is being destroyed when someone realizes who she really is. And once that secret is out, it's over.
Well,
Like, and to me, it's like it's the most exciting outcome, but it's also kind of
that's the fragility of her character, and that's what this movie really gets into is the fragility of this person and how she is able to how she is exploited through that fragility, but also we know that she probably knocked off her dad, so she has this killer instinct in her.
Let me ask this question. It's kind of a threshold into like the conversation I'll have after this. Is this movie portraying her as someone who could be clinically diagnosed as just a sociopath, and therefore kind of like any other more like nuanced class-based things are kind of left by the wayside? Because like she's a fucking psycho, man. Like. Or is this just sort of sidestepping that as a type of person that can exist? I don't want to be too abstract.
I think it's good to put it in those terms, and I think this is one of the admirable things about the film is that that's a key question that the audience has to address. This is not a movie that's going to give you those answers. You have to define that stuff for yourself when you come away from this film, and that's why I think that this is such a powerful movie.
Because if you enter it being like this is a movie about class, distinction and kind of warfare, in one straightforward sense, you come away with it being like, oh, I guess actually, someone from a lower class is a dangerous fucking menace that you have to keep an eye on, because I mean we're tiptoeing around it. So let's talk about what happens at the end of this movie.
Okay, so obviously, if you're listening to this podcast and if you've listened to our podcast in the past, you know that we don't really pull any punches when it comes to spoiling the plot. And hopefully, you'll just look at the title and watch the film before you listen to the podcast. And I would say that about all any of the films that we cover in this podcast is, watch the movie and then listen to the podcast.
Especially Dahmer. If you think it's going to be about a nice chocolate maker, you're so wrong. You're so wrong.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, there we go. We're gonna have to I think the Dahmer thing is gonna have to. You're gonna have to. You're gonna bring it. Now it's your responsibility, Mike. You're gonna have to. Yeah, if you want to. Yeah, you're gonna have to bring the Dahmer, whatever that's called, interruption when it happens.
So what happens? What happens in like the last 10 minutes of this movie?
Well, the family has planned to watch
a very lovely evening.
A very special evening. Now wait a minute, but let's get up before we get to we're not quite ready. We're not quite there.
Okay.
Because the daughter, Virginie Ledoyen.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're out there. I don't know. You listen to podcasts in English. I don't know what your deal is, but like, if you're ever in New York, we're on the Upper East Side, and we record
Mike,
a very
you're getting a little
special,
creepy. You're getting a little creepy now.
A very special podcast.
A little creepy, Mike.
And
I think you're screwing the pooch right now. How does that feel?
I'm just giving a shout out to Virginie.
No, I think you're screwing the pooch right as you speak.
Comment allez-vous, mademoiselle?
I look. It's been a long time since 1995. I'm sure she's a very nice woman, married. Come on, show some respect, Mike. We're seriously.
Madame.
Wait, Madonna?
Madame.
Oh.
Mademoiselle? No, Madame. Anyway.
All right. So the daughter has a very amorous boyfriend.
Yeah, he looked like he was like good 12 years older than her.
Yeah, he's well versed.
So he's got her knocked up in her the sense of the pregnant or
drink some more, have another drink.
She's fucking wit child.
Come on, Mike, settle down. Yes, she the girl is pregnant and she has the conversation, which I have to say that I full disclosure, when I was 17 I had the same conversation and I handled it the same way he did.
She has a Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. conversation,
No, it's not Francis Ford Coppola at all.
and the maid overhears it
Yeah, she's picked up the
by
phone.
picking up the phone.
So
No
she-
longer an issue because we just have single line telephones. This movie could never happen again. A house like a telephone in a house.
I grew up with these kind of phones, and I
grew
have
up
a
with
story
these
about
phones
that
too. But
yeah, and I also I remember my dad like tried to throw me out of the house. Well, no,
I
he
grew
did.
up, the whole
dad-
tenement building was on the same party line.
I just want to say my dad threw me out of the house because he was listening in on a conversation that I had, and he was so disgusted by the conversation that he threw me out of the house, and that was the real breaking point.
Say everything about this.
No, there it is. I just said it.
Well, what was the conversation about?
You think I'm going to tell you that? You're out of your mind. That's private.
How old were you? How dirty could this have been?
I was 14. You're dirty when you're 14.
Yeah.
You're really dirty because you can't really do the thing that would transpose the dirt. You have it's all verbal.
Right.
It's like Adam Savage. I don't know if you heard this podcast. Say they were interviewing Adam Savage from MythBusters, and he discovered that his 8-year-old son was searching for porn, and so he knows his 8-year-old son's porn search terms.
What keywords he's using?
Oh,
Yeah.
you're gonna love this.
I'm
it's
excited.
so good. You ready?
Yeah.
Adam Savage's 8-year-old son's porn search term: nudies.
Nudies.
That's so good. That's so awesome. Nudies. I want to see him nudies. And then when he busted his son on, he's like, "Now, do you have something to tell me?" And his son's like, "I wanted to see big boobies." It's like, why didn't you type in big boobies?
Just a word to our listeners.
Who doesn't want to see big boobies? I mean, for crying out loud.
Be explicit. Be specific.
Yeah.
That's all we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Say what you want. Write what you want. And if you can't write what you want because you don't know how to write,
ask your postal clerk friend.
ask your postal clerk friend. Or maybe get free reading lessons from your patron. So this movie has a maid who's serving them, and also we've called her the maid this whole time. What is the?
No,
I'm very bad at character names.
her name is Sophie. Sandrine Bonnet's character's name is Sophie, and Isabelle Hubert's character is Jean. But they don't really call each other by their names in the film.
Sophie comes up. They talk about how Sophie is Greek for wisdom, which is accurate.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, so Sophie is eventually fired because she overhears this conversation with the daughter.
With the daughter.
Melena.
The daughter's name is Melinda. You're close.
Melinda.
Yeah.
Melinda. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna remember her name.
Yo, if you're out there, if you listen to
Mike,
the
drink
podcast,
some more beer.
I think that's the problem, not the
Well,
solution.
no, but I'm trying to work you past that where you can't
Okay.
you can't even.
I can't even talk.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So she at the same time.
And this really, I mean, I want you to tell this because this is really to me the crux of the story is where Sophie overhears the conversation and she decides that she's gonna blackmail the daughter.
Right. So I mean, to back up real quick because I think the plot point is we're talking about is Melinda is reading like a French Cosmo and she's like, "Are you a bitch?" I mean, no, this quiz is about, "Are you a bitch? Can you read this quiz to me?" And she passes it, and Sophie, the maid, kind of freaks out, and Melinda realizes in that moment, and like all of these things come together, like, oh, like you're illiterate. Okay, no, that's cool. No, it's like I watched this show about you. Like my dad will pay for you to get classes. Don't worry about it. This is fine. We'll send you to Paris. We'll get you a course. You'll get to read. No problem. And to Sophie, this isn't like a wart that you just burn off with a thing you buy at the supermarket. Like the fact that another person has discovered her weakness, and I think that's a crux of it. And this is where you can dig into whether this is a film about class or whether this is a film about pride in general or whether this is a film about true sociopaths that keep the secret of their identity hidden is her reaction to this and just kind of what you think about human nature. She's not cool with this 20-year-old knowing this thing about her. And within like 5 minutes, she's picking up the phone. She's overhearing this girl's private conversation, learns that she's pregnant, and then blackmails her and says, "You will tell no one that I can't read, or everyone will know that you're pregnant."
And this and this is another moment to me where the characters surprise you because the daughter says, "Okay, fine, I'll just come clean. I'll do the right thing."
Yeah,
and that,
there's
and,
a tension. There's a tension set up, and this is a genius writing. Tension set up. It's not delivered on.
Yeah, no, it's really carried out in a very logical fashion. That, I hate to say it, but it almost. It's like no good deed goes unpunished. She she does the right thing. She comes clean to her parents, and then everything is okay. And then the family's on the couch watching their VHS recorded version.
Well, no, it's live.
Is it live?
I was very aware of what was happening.
Tell me, Mike. Tell me. I thought they'd recorded it.
They're watching a live broadcast,
but they're recording it
of Don Giovanni, but they're recording it onto their stereo, onto their I assume a cassette tape. They're watching Don Giovanni. And the dad's obsessed with Mozart, and the daughter is kind of talking up how she loves Mozart. And even the son at one point is like, "Opera, I love opera." So they're just trying to be like a cute little family.
Okay, but the context of the scene is the daughter is scheduled to have her abortion the next day.
Well,
and
sometimes
she could not, hang on, Mike, hang on. She could not be more blasé. She's sitting on the couch. She could not be happier. She is just so pleased with her situation and her family. She just
wants to watch.
She's so complacent.
And the latest Don Giovanni.
And this for me is the real thing that brings this film to a head, and the climax of the film is her attitude. She's so smug.
This is why abortions get funerals in Texas now, is because of these smug little French girls.
Drink some more, Mike.
Okay.
You're not quite drunk enough yet. So there's this. It's almost too well. It is. It is too good to be true because no 16. How old is she? 16, 17-year-old.
No, she's like 20.
The daughter? No, she's in high school.
I was paying attention.
Oh, really? Is she 20?
I think she's in college. Yeah.
Is she really?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you might.
She doesn't. Yeah. Okay.
We all know, Mike, about your thing for Virginie, and it is a pretty good name. I have to say,
if you're out there,
if you're gonna have the hots for a girl. If her name is Virginie, it's a pretty good
no,
name.
for real. Like I went to camp in Paris.
Oh
because
my God! Did you really? You went to camp in Paris?
I was a very bougie 15-year-old, and I went to camp in Paris.
You are making shit up, and
I'm not lying.
You went to camp in Paris.
That's I'm so drunk. I'm admitting these things. I went to camp for a month in Paris, and I swear to God that there was. First of all, let me set this up. Okay, there was a counselor. He wore a striped shirt. I saw him riding a bicycle and eating a baguette at some point, and he always flirted with the young girls in the program. And his name was
Mike.
No, stop it. You almost said it. I know you almost said it. His name was. He's French.
Marceau.
He's a French dude. Everything about him is stereotypical. His name was
Pascal.
Dog, don't do this to me. His name was Pierre.
Oh, Pierre.
Duh, dude. Like
I thought you were calling me Doug for a minute. Like,
the first one
who's Doug?
You go to. His name was Pierre. Anyway.
All right.
Virginie was his co-counselor.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it really was.
Oh.
Yeah, Virginie. Yeah, she dressed like a cartoon lady.
Like a cartoon French lady.
Like a cartoon French lady. It's really outrageous. Thinking back, she had like dresses with like people's faces on it and stuff like that. It was
Mike. We have digressed so far into this.
We're still talking about French people. I feel like we're very on topic for us.
Well, all right. So we're gonna bring this podcast to a close. Mike and I have done a very poor job of finishing our beers. Mike, have another. I'm serious. We both should just drink some beer right now.
All right, I'm doing this on Mike.
That's better. Yeah. Excuse me. We've now finished our beer.
Yo,
And I have to say that, next, we have to make it a rule, a hard, fast rule that any guest that we have, I don't want to bust Armand White, but he didn't drink his beer.
We're not naming names, but
we did.
Armand White
did not. He barely touched his beer. If you're a guest on the podcast,
it was only like 12:15 in the afternoon. I don't know what's wrong with this guy.
It's the nature that you did your due diligence.
Come
on, and you had to go back to work.
I left work. I drank a beer. I went back to work because I'm dedicated. I'm dedicated. Okay, I have a commitment.
And you're an alcoholic.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I mean, I was drinking while at work too. Okay, so it wasn't that special. I was drinking here.
Right.
What happens at the end of this movie? We've been beating around the bush.
You tell us, Mike. Yeah, I'll give you the payoff.
Sophie,
I'll give you a hint. A gun in the first act always goes off in the third. John Wesley Harding put that in a song admirably.
Isn't John Wesley Harding a name of a Bob Dylan song?
It's the name of a Bob Dylan album, I believe. But if you're not familiar with, do you not know of Wesley Stace, aka John Wesley Harding?
No.
Oh, I have to introduce you to John Wesley Harding. John Wesley Harding is an amazing singer-songwriter.
So
I think he's from Manchester. No, somewhere. Sussex.
Sophie, our maid, and the postal worker arrive to pick up her stuff. She's going to move out. And they're just kidding around while the family is in the other room watching Don Giovanni, unbeknownst to the arrival of the two women. And one thing leads to another, and they start trashing the family's private belongings. And then it moves on to playing with their guns. And then very nonchalantly, they're loading them. The husband overhears something, and it's intermission, so you can leave Don Giovanni.
Opera, yeah.
Also, go fuck Don Giovanni. It's all about the magic flute. I don't give a shit about fucking Don Giovanni. I know that. Like, magic flute is fucking in me like nobody's business.
Wow.
Don Giovanni.
That was impressive. That's the best work you've done all year, Mike.
I don't know a single song in Don Giovanni. Actually, if you really want to hear some good magic flute thing, I can do...
No. You've done enough.
All right, I've done it. Yeah, I have done enough. Yeah, I just seem respectable from that. Anyway, they're doing Don Giovanni, which is, the kids are right. It's boring as fuck. It's way too long. He goes into the kitchen, finds the two women standing there with his own hunting shotguns, loaded, and they blow him away. Mostly Sophie fires the first shot, blows him away. They continue in on the family, and one by one, just assassinate them. These two women who we've heard about their criminal pasts, but
they seal the deal.
We kind of find them fun. So going into it blind, I think you're a little you could potentially be completely shocked. And
were you shocked, Mike?
You know what gave this away? And I love Filmstruck, and I think they're great and they're awesome. But when you watch Filmstruck and you click the screen, you get a couple pieces of metadata.
Oh, really?
And they say the name of the movie. So it said La Cérémonie with a bunch of accent marks. And it said the runtime. And then it said the genre, which was mystery/crime/thriller.
Okay.
So I'm up to Act 2 of this movie. There's been nobody murdered. Normally in a movie that's a mystery/crime/thriller, someone be murdered in Act 1.
Right.
I know some shit's going down.
Okay.
I'm waiting for it.
Okay.
So on some level, I'm expecting it.
Yeah.
But I have to say, it could have gone either way. Like I was saying at the beginning, I, on some level, fully expected this family to have a basement full of dead maids. but I had a suspicion that it was going to indeed be Sophie and her friend that were going to do something dark. So,
And that doesn't mean that there couldn't be some dead maids in their
that's
basement.
a great point. We don't know that.
Yeah.
There's a richness to it that makes it feel like it was based on a true story. The fact that it was based on a novel makes a lot of sense, and I'm really interested in this relationship between an expanded universe and a screenplay, because they are different things, and when they interact with each other, they create unique films. You know what I'm saying, Cole? Like
I do, and I could not be in more agreement with you. And I think Gunter Grass's the 10 Drum is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll talk about the 10 Drums sometime. It's a good movie.
And you know what we're probably not going to talk about? I haven't seen it yet, but we're probably not going to be talking about Magical Beasts and Where to Find Them, movie 1 of 5.
That neither one of us will hopefully ever squander 2 hours of our precious lifetime on.
Yeah, I might go to it this weekend.
The fact of the matter is, life is very short and precious. And if you're going to spend a couple of hours on a movie, I'd rather it be a great one like La Cérémonie than anything from Hollywood.
So what's your okay? So it's like we've built so much in intense fucking possible meaning with this. There's a relationship between. All right, so classism in its most Marxist element, where the proletariat is seen as some sort of kind of inviolable source of good, which is the progression of humanity through society, where the bourgeois is the encapsulation of all that is evil.
Do you mean the bourgeoisie?
I honestly don't know.
You spelled it out for you so clearly the last time.
The bourgeois versus the bourgeoisie.
That's right. But this is the magic of beer.
So is the petit bourgeois the middle class? Do you know? Like that's what you hear about the petit bourgeois. I think it's like that's like the little bourgeois. Is that the middle class? Like,
I guess so.
No one's really made that too clear to me.
Yeah, that's good. Good question. Maybe one of our listeners can
If you guys can fill that out.
Yeah, we need that. We need some assistance.
If you put it into these terms, which I clearly don't fully understand, but if you put it into these large terms, what does it mean that are signifiers of the proletariat are the ones who are just like these psychopathic murderers who are killing for like I think even in the most generous example, there's no good reason to murder this family. Would you agree with that? Like,
absolutely.
They're douchey.
Absolutely.
A bit. But like the daughter's very nice. So the young boy is completely
innocent.
Completely innocent.
And I would say even Jacqueline Bisset, her greatest sin was that she called out the maid for running off. But they didn't fire. They fired the maid for the blackmail, not for running off.
For a very good reason.
Because she didn't really run off. She did her job.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, like if you lay out what the maid is condemned for, they are actually condemnable things, and you see the reaction to learning that she is illiterate, and they're very understanding in a very bougie way. It's a bit condescending, but like at most they're guilty of being condescending.
Look, I could easily see a film critic like Armand White taking the position that this is a condemnation of leftist ideology, and
no, yeah,
you're right. This
is
is like this movie completely falls into the right wing.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about it.
Marie Le Pen, who's probably going to be
this movie came true, though. This movie is the election of Donald Trump, in a sense. This is...
How so?
Okay. Oh, man, I'm way too drunk.
I know. You brought it up, though. You put your foot in it. You got to pay off.
But what this family is guilty of is having a leftist kind of condescending attitude to those who have been disadvantaged and are struggling. And though being empathetic to their plight, are not fully like thinking about them as like equals, Like I don't think any given liberal coming to the election were like, yo, fuck middle America and their struggle to find a job.
And it's also, you could also look at it as a condemnation of lesbianism.
Yeah, that's a little more straightforward. Like
Right?
it's kind of like these creepy dykes are gonna shoot all of us.
But
Like,
see, but this is why I like this movie, because it raises all of these issues in a very matter of fact way and leaves it up to the audience. This movie is not. It's not showing its cards. It's playing them.
that's why I wanted to know if this was based on a true story, because it has the inconvenience of reality, which
Uh-huh.
is that people do things for reasons which are complex
Mm-hmm.
and which don't always defend their archetypes politically and are not always
Well, let's look at it from
socially helpful.
let's look at it from a gun perspective, and I think one of my personal issues with Hollywood is that for far too long it has promoted gun violence, and as I said earlier, a gun in the first act always goes off in the third. If this family didn't have any guns in the
Very
house,
true.
you wouldn't have this situation. So to play devil's advocate,
It is set in a universe where this family, there are only guns accessible to these people who are pathological, who are
yeah.
unstable people,
Yeah.
because this family has an affinity for hunting.
So you could see you could view this film as an anti-gun.
Or as you said, as an anti-lesbian film. As
There's so many different
as
ways
an
that there's so many different ways that you can look at it.
Anti-bourgeoisie film.
But through it all, I have to say that this amazing cast of actors, because of the truth that they bring to their characters and the fruition of the narrative that they bring to the film, it's really charismatic. It's a very charismatic, thought-provoking film, and I love that. Anything that provokes discussion and thought, Hitchcock would call it a kitchen sink film, or no, a kitchen film, because you have to, after you watch it, you have to sit around in the kitchen and discuss it. This is that movie. So maybe there is something to the Claude Chabrol being the French Hitchcock. I take it all back. I'm a hypocrite. You guys know I'm a hypocrite, but I admit to it, which most people don't. I struggle with it every day.
Well, a quick shout out again to Filmstruck for having films like this and so many more on there. Thank you. This was, I don't think I could have seen this film very easily otherwise, so I appreciate that.
Have another drink, Mike. Thank you all for listening, and good night.
Do 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 do.